This is the Elevated Grapes Podcast.
Elevated Grapes Podcast.
With your host, Sethi.
Your host, Sethi.
And stylist Rashi Bindra.
It's time to get started.
Let's talk fashion, shall we? All right, welcome to the Elevated Grapes Podcast. I am your host, Sethi.
And I am stylist and fashion consultant Rashi Bindra. And we have a very special guest here today.
Super cool guest today.
And I'm kind of excited because I have worked with her before, and I still remember the first time I was a bit nervous, and I saw her at this event, and I just went up to her, and I was like, so we're doing this event, and that's how we got the ball rolling. So this is actually very, very special to me. I'm so excited to announce Joan Kelley is as one of our very special guests this podcast. Yeah,
So-
Thank you for having me.
Yes,
Thank you for having me.
joining
and
us.
Thank you for coming to my house to save me the drive. So I appreciate that. You brought your studio right here
Right
to
here.
my living room.
We love being mobile. We like to make it easy for everyone
Yeah.
that gets to work with us. So
Yeah, thank you.
and thank you for inviting us and letting us in your house. That's
Okay.
That's a first starting point.
Well, Smokey approved.
Smokey.
Yes.
We got the cat in the shot.
So Smokey's our other special guest. She may or may not be vocal.
Yeah,
we'll
but
see. We'll
she's
see how
there.
that goes. Hopefully, we can
Yeah.
get her to say a couple
She
of
looks
things.
pretty comfortable. I
Yeah,
have to
she's
say.
very relaxed.
Yeah.
I think
Notice she's sitting between the two of you instead of over here.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a sign. I don't know.
I think she likes the jacket. I think that's what it is.
I think that's what it is. Like, oh, her eyes match the jacket, and her fur
Ah.
matches the jeans, so it's kind of like an accessory.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
you go. Just
You need one of those little purse dogs.
right.
Yeah. yeah.
We do- so,
See, there
so
you
that's
go.
what with my
Yeah.
actually my cat gets carried around in a TNA bag because that's where she's comfortable because she can like take her head and dip it underneath when she's nervous, and she'll pop her head out when she's a little bit confident.
So
she'll
where
look
do
around.
you take her?
Oh, almost everywhere we possibly
Really?
can.
Do
Yeah,
you
like
fly with her?
that's the only thing we haven't done.
Yeah.
Like as a family, we've done road trips, and she's driven to New York. She's been to Buffalo's not really a trip. She goes to my sister's condo.
That's a trip for a cat.
She goes to my sister's condo all the
Big
time.
trip.
Yeah, so she travels a bit, so she gets special treatment TNA bag.
This
It's lined
cat
with
has been around.
She's been around, lined with
Yeah.
nice blankets. It looks really comfortable. Sometimes I want to get in there, but it's a little
Good.
bit too small.
I
My
think
cats
she
go to
would
the
kick you out.
cottage,
Oh right.
and I think that's the extent of it.
And how's
if they're not sort of contained, then they're all over the car, and there's cat
Yes.
hair on the ceiling, like all over the place, and they get very nervous.
so how's traveling with them? How do you find that works?
Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah.
Not great. Not great. They should be in a carrying case, and then they sit kind of.
They sit confined and
better.
happy. Yes.
Yeah, but I also have two big dogs, so
Oh, okay.
usually, like in a vehicle, there's potentially kids and big dogs and the cat, and we had another cat, so it was like a little bit of chaos. But we'd get there.
Pets
every
are
time.
always fun.
Yes.
But the dogs must be easy to work. They get excited when they get to the cottage.
They get very
I
excited.
would assume
They
when
know
they
we're
smell the
going
water.
to the cottage right
Yeah.
away, and they'll jump in the truck just as we're packing up because they're like, "Don't leave without
Yeah.
me." It's so adorable.
They're like family too, right?
They are,
I
for
think
sure.
They are family, so yeah.
So
Yeah.
so Joan Kelley's with us. Just a bit of background for those that don't know her, and if you don't, you should know her. Models, well, you have your own collection and your own line, host, voiceover artist, a bit of acting, and you do a bunch of everything. So let's sort of start with your story and how it all began. And then I know it starts back in Saskatchewan, way back in the day, but
You know, it's funny. My publicist was sending me some throwback pictures today, and on Slice Network, somebody had done a compilation of me, and I had never even seen it before. And it started with a baby picture, and
Right.
then went to about 5 years old, and it just sort of went up in little increments like that. And I was like, okay, somebody did their homework. I don't even know where they got
Where they
all
got
these
this from.
pictures. But it was like a little walk down memory lane, and one of my first ever fashion shows in Regina was for this mall, and one of the vendors in the mall was this I was carrying on the runway a cup for Orange Julius, which is like a
Yep.
smoothie kind of
Yep.
thing. Yeah, so that's weird. Like, people don't do that nowadays, I don't think, in mall shows.
was it for Orange Julius? Was that?
No, I was wearing some other vendor's clothes, but I was still carrying this Orange Julius cup. One of my first fashion shows. That's what it was. And
So
I saw
Orange Julius
pictures
got
today.
some free marketing out of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess. But
So you started off as in modeling at a very young age.
yeah. My first ever fashion show, I was 14, and
Right.
I modeled for the Bay in Regina.
That's fantastic.
nice.
That's a great company
And
to
I
start
was
with.
terrified. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know, and I was too shy to ask. So, they just kind of dressed me and then put me out there. So I just walked, and I probably looked like I was terrified, but they ended up using me a couple times, and
So that's a good sign.
where
So
it
clearly you
started.
knew what you were doing.
Well, I don't know. Do I still know what did I ever learn that? I don't know.
Well, I
hope so.
was gonna say, like, I'm sure there's like 19-year-old models that don't know what they're doing sometimes.
Yeah.
So at 14, it's
Yeah, the industry has changed so much, and you have to be really smart to pick up on nuances of, when to step in, when to step out, when to be quiet, when to be more aggressive. Like it really is an emotional thing to do, modeling. Like you have to be strong, you have to take rejection, you have to know yourself. It's definitely a challenging thing, and it's not for the faint of heart.
well, also like, even when you're on the runway or in front of a camera, like a lot of the times with the photographers, it's like you're kind of working with no one in front of you, and so being able to put those emotions out on camera is not the easiest thing.
Yeah.
As a lot of people think it's like, oh, they're a model. Like I don't understand. You just got to stand there and smile, but it's not really that easy.
Yeah, well, in the day, and you guys probably wouldn't know this, but in the day, we didn't have all this technology. Like they'd be clicking away saying, oh yeah, that's great, or, do this, try that. You had no idea what it looked like. And now you can ask to see what it looks like. So you can get an idea of the lighting and did that pose work, or this obviously didn't work. And it's much, much easier. In the
Right.
day, honestly, you had no idea. You relied more heavily on the photographer and the direction that they gave you, and you really had to listen and then just cross your fingers and hope for
And
the
hopefully
best.
one of the shots works out
Yeah,
to reach.
yeah. And they also didn't have, like, if you wanted to retouch something, like they would actually take the photograph and kind of paint on it. It wasn't digital at all. So, you'd have this beautiful, like you'd have your photo, but that you wanted to change something, and you really had to trust the retouch artist, because if they didn't
Right.
do a good job, then you had to get another copy of it and try something
And start
else.
from scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really lengthy process.
Yes.
But then,
Yeah.
wouldn't we say that at that time, modeling was a lot more authentic in the sense where it was considered to be a very serious profession, and that's how all these supermodels came about? Because, like you said, there was no technology. You had to rely on the photographer and what they were doing, and you had to have that sense of confidence to be like, I'm giving all my emotions here
Yeah.
to this person, and I'll see it whenever it like comes out. Versus now, where it's like, I want to see this, I want to change it. What do you mean I have to wear that? I'm not going to do it if I have to wear it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like now, I feel that there's a lot more demands from a modeling perspective, like versus years back when it was
Yeah.
just like, this is an art, this is a profession, and
Yeah.
we just have to make it as amazing as possible.
Well, nowadays models do so much more than just stand there and get their picture taken, which is fantastic, because in the day it was like, you were a model, you didn't speak, you didn't do anything else.
Right.
So I like that has changed, and I also like that it's so much more inclusive now.
Yes, it is.
Because
has
that
changed.
whole thing has just opened up and really flowered in a really positive way, so that it doesn't matter what age, shape, size, you can still be beautiful
Yeah.
because you exude that. And I think that has a lot of power. And it's really interesting to watch people on social media and in magazines, and just, see what they bring and what they want to present.
Well, also like the art form has changed, because the art of picture taking and the art of what the end result is so vastly different than before, because of technology and what you're able to do with the photo. I'm not talking about like airbrushing. I'm talking about the way you can make the scene look that the model is
Yes.
standing in as an example,
Yes.
and create a whole scene that maybe the model's
May
not
or may
even
not
in.
be there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, and we've all seen that. So I really like some of that aspect of where the new digital age has taken us from a photography perspective, or even videography. Or, we see it done with CGI with movies and that sort of thing too, right?
Yeah. But I love, like, you hear about a celebrity like Britney Spears or somebody that just, they either refuse to wear makeup, or they refuse to let the picture be retouched.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that they're so bold to do that.
And we're seeing a lot more of that.
Yeah.
And a big advocate of that is, oh my God, I'm forgetting her name. Alicia Keys,
Yes.
right? She's a big advocate of
Yeah.
that, of being natural, and showcasing who you really are,
Yeah, and
which
stunning.
is amazing.
How
And
much more beautiful could anybody
I mean, she's
possibly
stunning.
be? Stunning, stunning. Yeah,
So-
very, very good example.
So let's sort of walk through that. So you started off sort of modeling at a very young age, and then where did it lead you from there? Did that escalate into something else, or did you take a separate avenue on your own?
Oh, wow. Well, I didn't say, okay, I want to be a blank. Like, I
Right.
didn't have like a word. My goal was to make a living somehow in this business. And I'm sure a lot of people, Rashi, probably that maybe that's your goal. I don't know, but I couldn't clearly define it because I didn't know enough about it. But I was in a very small town in Saskatchewan. And I knew that probably wasn't the place I was going to make a living in this business.
Right.
So I took a bit of a leap of faith. And when I was 16, I went out to Vancouver and I modeled. And then after I finished high school, then I thought, okay, well, I think I need to go bigger. So I came out here and I found a modeling agent and I started doing a little bit of acting and, one thing led to another. And instead of, waitressing and stuff like that, I was always good at makeup. So I started working as a makeup artist. And
okay.
I had some producers that just gave me a break and they showed me, okay, if you look at the monitor, he's standing here. If I do this with this light, how does that affect the shadows on their face? And what can you do to get rid of that shiny bit? And they really took me under their wing, and I'm forever grateful for that mentorship. And that's one of the reasons why I mentor as often as I can, whenever I can. And then just being on set for music videos and corporate videos and commercials and film and everything as a makeup artist, I would just sit there and do my job, but I would sit and I would watch, like, oh, what's that person doing? What is that person? And then if I got up the nerve, I would go and ask them, like, what is your job? Like, what are you writing down? Or what are you doing with those tapes or film? Or,
Right.
And they would, they were just happy to share their experience and their knowledge with me. And they'd say, well, I do this, I do that. And so from there, I learned enough that I started working in a few different aspects of the industry. And depending on how big the crew was and whatever the shoot was, I've worked as a grip. I have done styling. I have done wardrobe. I've done hair. I've done makeup. I have produced. I've directed. And, it all kind of just became this big mix of things, but I always loved, using my voice and being on camera. And so that led to me doing more and more interviewing people and, hosting videos and talking to a teleprompter, or just, talking off the top of my head, like a reporter. So, yeah. And then all of a sudden I was on a reality TV show that was like a whole different thing, and here we are.
So
I'm back in radio, and I'm writing for Living Lux magazine.
So you did.
It's good.
You mentioned we're going to get to the reality TV show in a second because that's a whole beast on its
whole
own.
other
It's a whole
thing,
beast
yeah.
on its own.
Yeah.
But you mentioned radio, so I think you were on CHRY for a while.
I started at CHFI doing the
Right.
weather,
CHFI, my
and I
apologies,
was
yep.
the morning anchor at the Weather Network at
Okay.
the time. And then when I left there, I went to the Fan and Easy Rock, and I did, it was called the Heartbeat Report.
Right.
So I would go around the city and I would just find things that were interesting to me. And I had 4 1-minute little clips that
Segments.
I would do per day. And so the Heartbeat Report, it was like anything that kind of tugged at my heartstrings.
Right.
So I could go to a fundraiser or the CNE or anything that was interesting. So, and I did all my writing and I did all the voiceovers, and I had to learn technically like how to record the thing and edit the thing and load it for the DJ. And I had none of those skills before that. So
Right.
that was fantastic. And then at the Fan, I co-hosted and I did the traffic. So it's a lot of bantering with the guys on the air. So
Sure.
that was a really fun gig.
So are you a sports person, or is it something you just adapted
Not
and
at
learned?
that level.
Right.
I do enjoy sports, but they know every single
Of course.
thing about it. So I was kind of the outside, the girl. And plus, I'm in the traffic booth, and they were like on the other side of a window, so I wasn't necessarily always listening to what they were saying. So they would, call me in on a conversation. I was like, this is not fair.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's also nice because it brings it down from that technical into like a
Yes.
real person's conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, definitely so.
So radio came about before or after like some of the other hosting events that you were working on?
Well, I was doing radio and I was doing a lot of other freelancing at the same time. And while I was doing radio, and I told you this before, I bought a house. And I was like, okay, I don't have a job. I freelance. I don't know how am I
going to pay my bills?
Yeah, how am I going to do this? But so I just kept working. And I always loved every aspect of the business.
And I think that's such a huge thing, is that a lot of us, and it's like we were having that conversation, we sometimes get so scared and we get so caught up in that how I'm going to make this happen, that we don't realize that once we just let go and we just focus on what we love to do, whether we're doing 2 jobs, 3 jobs, it's not work, it's love, and somehow it all just flows, and and we just end up
a lot
doing
of
it.
people can't handle that, though.
It's
they
very
they look at
difficult.
it as pressure instead of freedom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's sorry. It's,
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, I know it's very difficult because if you have a bill that's not been paid, if you have maxed out your credit card at that moment, you internally start freaking out, and then you wonder, have I made a mistake? And what's going to happen to this? Versus just taking a step back and be like, this is temporary. I love what I'm doing. It's like I will end up paying this. I will end up doing that. And you just have to have that thick skin, I guess, and that strong faith in yourself and the people around you that's gonna all somehow come together. How we don't know, but it's gonna come together. So
Well, I was gonna say it's also opportunity, right? Like if you're closed off to it and you're thinking, well, I'd love to do this, but you don't put yourself into it to do it, then you're losing opportunity because you're not around that environment. You're not in those environments where you're doing that kind of work and people to hear you and people to see you and even you meeting the right people and networking with the appropriate people to get to the radio or on television or whatever may come next to you. Like your story is amazing because of that. It allowed you to explore not just one area of passion, so many different areas of passion, and maybe whether you were trained or not for that, it didn't matter, right? Because at that point it's like, well, I know this is something I love doing and I can do it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try it and I'm going to learn about it. And you're on the fan talking about sports. It doesn't, you don't necessarily have to be trained for that, but it gave you an opportunity that you wouldn't have had otherwise if you weren't open for it.
Definitely. Yeah, that actually happened quite a bit. And you get sort of addicted to the challenge of
course.
it, which I guess is a good thing. But then on the other hand, I was thinking, if I had just picked one and said, okay, I want to be a TV actress, and really just focused on that, maybe I would have taken that and gone further. But I feel like I had this really broad experience that I wouldn't have otherwise had, that most people don't. And it's even hard to explain because it's like, people, you did what?
Yeah. Like how? How did that happen?
How
did you leap from this to that? And
Yeah.
how did it get you over here?
Yeah. And there was, a few other shows that I hosted too. Like one was RV Vacation Adventures, like recreational vehicles.
Yeah.
There was a TV show about that. I was the host. Oh boy, what else? Like there was a real estate show. There was a cooking show. There was, none of them like exploded and were huge, but it was still in my repertoire of stuff that I've done.
Absolutely.
And
as a host, it's a transferable skill. That's something you enjoyed the hosting component of it, I assume.
Yeah, and that's what led me to Red Carpet Diary.
Right.
And I also did, part of this whole crazy schedule, I did a lot of public speaking and representing products for corporations, whether it was on stage for, a meeting, like they're introducing a new product and I'm acting like the salesperson or something,
right.
And they'd give me a big long script, and that was a skill that I never knew I had. I could, I haven't had to do this in a while, but I could sit down literally and learn pages and pages and pages of technical script, and then stand up on a stage and just recite it out as if it was my own.
Without the script in front of you.
Yes, absolutely, and that's very challenging.
It's
so I
very
did
challenging.
a lot of car shows, computer shows, graphic shows. I did one called it was a lumber product where they make the pressure treated wood. So I was teaching people how to build decks.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I was hired by the pressure treated wood company. So I would go into lumber stores and give presentations to contractors. Like all of these, it's all just developing skills, I think, for what I'm doing now, which is again, a little bit all over the map, but I work at TIFF every year at Red Carpet Diary, which is great. You got to think fast on your feet.
Absolutely.
You got to be able to memorize stuff. Like, they give you a stand up 2 seconds before you're supposed to do it. You have to memorize it and try and do it while the movie star is still standing right behind you. You gotta, it's a bit of a scramble, but I'm addicted, I think, to the challenge of it, and I think it's all.
Well, it sort of also becomes a bit second nature as you continue to do it more and more, right? There's I'm not saying there's not challenges still, but
Yes.
but maybe the host that you were 10 years ago versus the host you are now. I'm sure there's been a lot of learning and experience that has helped you to take on some of these challenges and thinking, it doesn't matter, I can still do it, and I can do it better.
Yeah. Well, and also I think that comes with age. The older you get, the more you realize, like, people are people. It doesn't matter if it's, I don't know, Tom Hanks standing there or who knows, but you want to get into a conversation with them as much as you can, like what we're having here.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, this is what, people want to hear, people want to see, they want to know what the movie star or whoever is really
Who they really
like,
are, yeah.
instead of like some big formal way of doing it.
Absolutely.
I
So
don't think-
who's?
sorry, go on.
Sorry, no. Go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say that I don't think we can ever be formal, just
No.
given how we are in life and just
No.
the way we are when we go to events.
We can try. We start being formal sometimes,
Yeah.
and then it just goes down the normal road.
Yeah. Well, you guys are doing a great job.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
So you've got to interview a bunch of different people on the red carpet. So what's some of the memorable ones that maybe stick out in your mind?
Well, I realize that the bigger the star, a lot of times the nicer they are because they've been through it, they've seen it. Sometimes you forget that they're nervous. Like, they're on
Right.
a carpet and there's like how many cameras
Thousands
pointed
of
at them
cameras,
and
yeah.
everybody wants to talk to them. So that's really interesting. But you talk to like George Clooney. He actually put his hand on my arm and said, after the interview, he's like, "Did you get what you want? Was that okay?" I'm like, "Oh,
wow.
yeah, that was
That's
good."
That's a real life moment.
That's a real life moment. And Al Pacino, he made it through half of the carpet, and there was like 80 media outlet, and they pulled him into the movie because they do like a live introduction.
Sure.
On the way out, he said, I'll be back, and they never come back. He actually came back and did the whole rest of the carpet. So I have a lot of respect for someone that does that and treats
actually
everybody equally. And Ron Howard,
Yep.
the director,
Yep.
the child actor turned big director.
Absolutely, yeah.
He was great because on the red carpet, if there was 10 media outlets and he had 10 minutes to be there, everybody got 1 minute. He didn't spend 10 minutes, 6 minutes over here and then rush through the rest.
He wanted to be fair to whoever's
He
there.
was fair and, just give him a topic and he would just talk perfectly. So it's interesting, the different approach. And some of them come in with such great fanfare and all these publicists and everybody. And some of them literally walk down the street from their hotel and just walk
by
in
themselves.
by themselves.
Well, I kind of feel that some of the folks or some of the bigger celebrities that have been around for a while and have done this numerous times, they also want a sense of reality. So yes, they want to. Obviously, they're there. They're going to be interviewed, but if they can have a normal conversation with someone, I'm sure they appreciate that too. Because a lot of what they deal with is the fans and being the celebrity. Where if they get a moment to talk to someone and have a real conversation about themselves, it kind of separates that in that specific space or environment, right?
Yeah, which is hard to do when there's like
It's tough. Yeah.
You're crammed with cameras on either side of you and other interviewers trying to,
Jab their mic
steal them
in.
away. So so you got to be like fast and really genuine and
Absolutely.
really connect in a brief time. I mean, that's the goal.
Yeah, but when it does,
Realistically and honestly, sometimes it doesn't. But
that's
you
the
never
goal.
know. You never know what's going to happen.
So let's talk about your move into reality TV. So let's jump into how did that happen? About was this like something that you wanted to do? Is it something that just sort of fell back in your lap?
I got a phone call literally out of the blue one day, and I thought, well, I've done a lot of other television and stuff like that, so maybe that would be interesting. And so it took a long time to get from that first phone call to when we finally started shooting. And I know that they were talking to a lot of people, and people were talking, and everybody was saying, oh, I'm going to be on that show. But meanwhile, we had like personality tests and a physical and a psychological
Oh, wow.
evaluation and screen tests and Skype interviews and then live interviews. So it was quite a process. And by the time it came around, I was like, I really want to do this show. I think this.
Well, I think you're so invested at that moment.
Yeah. So it was good. And then I was like, okay, I really don't know how to do this. I gotta figure this out.
So is reality TV truly reality, or is it part of it? Like, we're going to put you in a situation. We got to ask this question. Like, is it real reality or is it quasi reality? If you can answer that.
There were parts that were very real, and then
Right.
there were times that they would say, okay, we'll talk about this.
Right.
So they would try and
a little bit of direction.
Yeah. Or the producer would kind of take you aside and say, she can't get away with that, or try and get you
They try to
riled
rile it
up
up.
Yeah.
Yes.
as much as they can. Like they want a certain dynamic.
Yes.
It's
not
hard not to
lie.
get sucked into that.
Oh, it was actually very interesting. So I'm not the type in general to watch shows like this. It's just never like appealed to me. My sister like loves it. But then when I started watching the first one, I was like, okay, this is my like guilty pleasure. So I wouldn't tell people right away I'm watching it, but I made sure I was like caught up on
You were on it. Yeah,
every episode.
Yeah.
And I was like, while like rooting for our like favorite housewife at that time, it was.
Yeah.
I think the whole city got like.
I think so.
invested in
I
it.
think they did a great job, and technically it looked really,
Right.
really professional. And I think the focus on fashion was there.
Was
The
there.
focus on the city was there.
Yeah.
And I think that really brought everybody together as a community.
Yeah, and you ladies are still all friends, and even after the show, we've seen you guys at events, and then you guys have your like hangouts and things like that. Roxy, Grego,
Anne and Jana
and
me.
yeah,
Yeah.
Anna,
So
yes,
five
yourself,
of us.
Jenna,
Yeah. And so there's one lady that just kind of, I don't know, I think she may have left the city. I'm not sure what happened.
Yeah,
But
I
there's
don't
there
remember
was
her name,
no
Yeah.
bad feelings or
Mhm.
anything whatsoever, and I have nothing but respect for her, and she's doing her thing, and I wish her all the best.
And I still recall that year when right after the show happened and you were everywhere, and you and Grego especially, I think at that time, because Anna was still focused on her business and she
Yeah.
was just making certain appearances.
Yeah.
But you and Grego were so involved in fashion and dance and arts that night too, when I was really scared, but I still came and approached you. I was so nervous actually. And I remember.
Was that the event I was wearing that gold dress?
Yes.
Yeah, that was interesting. That was the
Yeah.
first time that we had been out and really got kind of mobbed.
Yeah.
It was getting a little crazy. We actually had to leave because that's when the show had first come out.
Yes.
And we hadn't really met anybody or done
Mhm.
anything like that before. So
Yeah, and it was at the Thompson, and I think
Yeah.
you had that, and you had the lawn gold,
Mhm.
goldish white dress, and your hair was super long and super straight.
Yeah.
Yes, and we were from afar seeing it, and then we're like, should we go? Should we not? Like they're with like their like PR and the bodyguards, whatever. And I literally took a huge gulp of wine. So I will now finally admit that. I took a huge gulp of wine. I'm like, Rashi, what's the worst is gonna happen? I just like went up to you, and then I still recall how we asked you about our event that was happening the following week, and then we actually ended up having a conversation about one of your episodes of the show and how that came about, and I think it was still so fresh,
Mhm.
but at that moment still the entire city was like Team Joan versus the other
Yeah.
lady whose name I actually cannot remember for the life of me, but it was a very, very interesting moment, and,
Yeah.
I think I have a photo up there somewhere too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love
Yeah.
to see
Sorry,
that.
so we're going to take
I
a
will
quick
send it to you.
break, and we're going to be right back. Hey guys, we're taking a quick break just to remind you where you can find our podcast online.
You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Tunes,
Apple Music, but you call it Apple Tunes.
whatever.
Right. You can also find us on TuneIn, on Google Play, and of course Instagram when we do it the first Tuesday of every month.
And Facebook here and there.
Here and there.
Here and there.
So thanks for tuning in, and now back to our podcast. All right, welcome back. And
so I still
no,
continue?
yeah, you can continue.
Welcome back?
I want to do the welcome back, and then
Welcome
you're
back.
gonna go back into your story and your fangirl moment.
Are we doing the hand
Yeah,
thing now?
yeah. I'll do this while you talk. There we go.
See, there you go,
Yeah.
all of us.
Yeah. Smokey's like, I want to join it.
Yeah.
How do I do that?
I think for me, fangirl moments are with people that I end up feeling that I could relate to, and which is why I think one of the reasons I was so addicted to the show was I was like rooting for you, and then Grego as well. Like I love
Thank
her
you.
and the fact that she's from Montreal, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh my god, it's a damn that she's from Montreal. But then I was seeing, I'm like, Joan is the most classiest woman in this entire setup,
Thank you.
regardless of the situations. And I think we all learned a lot. from
Oh,
that.
thank you. That's so nice.
It's
You
actually
know,
true,
at
though,
the end
yeah.
of the day, a reality show, it's a TV show for entertainment purposes. Like
Yes.
it's not out there to hurt anyone or ruin
Yeah.
anyone's life. But on the other hand, you can't go around, in life, you can't go around being mean and judgmental and
Exactly.
condescending. Like it doesn't serve well. Because what you put out there is what comes back. I
Agreed.
think.
Absolutely.
Agreed, and I think that is a testament to what you've, how people have responded to you, and how your popularity grew even more from the show. Because I mean, every time we heard that, one of the Real Housewives is like going to be there, everybody got excited, and at that moment, it was you more so than any of the women.
Oh, that's nice.
Just because of I think your field and what you were doing and how like open you were. I think that was that's where the whole city was like, just coming together, and then we all were like, is there season 2 coming and all that stuff, and we still wish it would happen, but
I know. Well, we were all ready to go. Like we
Right.
were like literally starting shooting like within a few days. And then we honestly were never really told what happened.
Wow.
So there was obviously something going on that we didn't know, maybe something legal or maybe something somebody at the top just made a decision. So that's what happened. But in the meanwhile, I thought, you know what, I don't think they really showed parts of me, like all the philanthropy work that I love.
Right.
And so I had this idea about a clothing brand in my mind, thinking, okay, season 2 or 3 or 4, like at some point they're going to have to show that I'm making a clothing brand where the profits are going to charity.
Right.
So I had this thing, the ball was just starting to roll, and I was still trying to get it to gel in my brain. And and it took off, and I was kind of not surprised, because we had really good people on board, but it really just came together organically. So it was a really, really crazy first year of doing that, and now I've had a chance to kind of sit back and reflect and think, okay, now do I need to jig things a little bit and reshape it going forward? But what a year. Holy cow.
So talk about that a little bit. The year, like, what was the concept behind the brand and the clothing line? Like, how did it come about? And we're going to get to the philanthropy piece, because that's a huge component of it for you. So, but how did it come about? What was the inspiration behind the type of work that you're doing in that
Well,
space?
I've always loved fashion.
Yes.
And I've always loved philanthropy. So I thought, okay, there's got to be a way to do this
Merge
together.
these-
And I've
merge
been
these
to
worlds.
so many galas and fundraisers and events, and I love it. And a lot of them are, fundraisers for charity, which is great. But I thought, I could do another gala. I want to do something that's unique to me, and something that brings together fashion and philanthropy. Because, people in fashion are so wonderful and creative and interesting.
Absolutely.
I just thought, it would be more interesting to do it that way. Plus I wanted to, kind of challenge people in the fashion industry to think a little bit more about philanthropy going forward. So that was kind of the beginning of it. And then Walmart came along, and I thought, people thought, okay, after doing a TV show like that and with my lifestyle, that I would come up with super expensive, high-end, one-of-a-kind,
Right.
haute couture brand. But you know what, that's not my roots. I'm from a small town. My dad was a grain farmer. I'm very proud of that heritage. And I wanted to support women all across Canada. And a lot of people can't afford designer
Right.
clothing. So I wanted to give them an opportunity to get something really good quality, fashion forward, a designer label, at an affordable price. I mean, come on. You don't need to spend a fortune to get quality.
Good quality
Agreed.
and good looking clothes too
Yeah,
at the same
and
time.
a lot of the people that were reaching out to me from across the country, you know, we're normal, down to earth people. And once they heard about the brand, they really got behind it and really appreciated, like, you know, if I buy an item from this brand, I know that part of that is going to support a charity.
So what charities do you support, or is there a specific charity that you focus
The specific one that it has been is Breakfast Club of Canada, which I will certainly continue to support.
Very good, yeah.
You know, I am a spokesperson for World Vision Canada and
Yep.
a couple of other NGOs and different charities in Canada. And the focus for me is usually women and children. And Breakfast Club was a no-brainer because there's too many kids in our country that go to school without a proper breakfast.
Right.
And it's actually shocking. It's like 1 in 4. So Breakfast Club in Canada feeds, they're in over like 1,200 schools. Yeah, and there's no stigma. Like, you don't have to, you know, sign up for it because your family can't afford breakfast. Anybody in the whole school can go there.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's kids from all walks of life, and it turns into a social thing, and it helps the family. But the most important thing for me and my heart was that 100% of the time, it's not the kids' fault that they aren't.
They
getting
can't get
Yeah.
a meal, right?
Yeah, and sometimes they have a single parent, and that parent works shift work, or, you know, for whatever reason.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to do my part to give every kid their best chance to learn as well as they can.
It's such an incredible cause.
Yeah.
And I mean, the one thing, and this has been a question on my mind since, you know, I've been following you. You do so much. Like, when I say so much, literally, you're like, you have TIFF, you have your line, and you give back so much. But at the same time, you have such a huge and incredible family, and a very welcoming family.
Thank you.
And just by coming into your home today, I was like, oh my God, I feel so welcome. So, but how do you manage to balance all of that and your friends with your kids' friends, and you make them feel welcomed, and it's an art to have that, and I'm just curious to know how you do it.
Oh, thanks. You know what? I think balance, that's the big question and the big challenge, and something that you never stop striving for. Because, you know, it's your relationship with your spouse or something always kind of gets, you know, going back and forth in the pendulum. So it's, you know, your kids, your relationship, your family, your work, your creative outlets. Like, how many pots can you have on the go?
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, I made a conscious decision to go with my brand full steam ahead for that first year, and then stop and reevaluate. And the timing was really good because we were coming into a new decade, 2020 starting. And so I consciously slowed down and spent some really great quality time with my family for a few weeks. And then, unfortunately, my mom has had a stroke.
I'm
And
sorry.
I
It's
just
very
put
sorry to hear.
everything else on hold.
Right.
Like, everything
Absolutely.
on hold. And I've just been with her. And I have to say, you know, all those pots that I had boiling on the stove are not as important as I thought.
No.
And so you kind of consolidate them. Some of them you just get rid of. Some of them you keep on the back burner for later. And, you know, we're getting through it. And now I'm starting to come back, you know, back at it again because my mom's doing pretty well. And,
Very happy. We wish her a very speedy recovery.
yeah,
glad
thank
she's
you.
doing okay.
Yeah, we have to find a new normal, but you know, when you have trauma like that in your life, it makes you appreciate every little
Absolutely.
tiny victory, no matter.
Well, I think
tiny.
you know, you sort of hit the nail on the head. Like, support from the family has got to be one of the most important factors for you to be able to do all the things you're doing.
Yeah.
Right. Within so many different elements of the world that you're in.
Yeah, my husband has been exceptional, I have to say. And I think sometimes he thinks, like, why are you doing all this? And sometimes I say that too. But yeah, and my kids have been great, and my mom, and everybody has just been, like, they're just cheering me on. Like, yes, do that. And, you know, look at these experiences that I've had. I feel so fortunate. Even if it all went away, I would just be
Just to have had those.
and elated that, you know, wow, this happened. Like, I got to enjoy all of that. So I don't, you know, I think it is time for a bit of a shift going forward. I still don't know 100% what that looks like, but I've got some opportunities, and we'll have to do a second podcast once things start to
absolutely.
gel.
Well, I think so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was just
More
going to ask
than
what your next
just a
steps
podcast.
are, and you kind of answer that.
Yeah, I can't really answer that right now, but you know, I'm really letting things just evolve the way they should.
Right.
And then we'll see where it goes.
There's something to be said about letting things happen naturally.
Yeah.
So I will ask
Hard
you.
to do.
I will ask you one question, sort of before we close, and because a lot of our listeners and our podcast is very fashion focused. We want to get your take on sort of, because you have such a strong position in the fashion world, your take on sort of fashion between the industry and the fashion world here in Canada versus some of the stuff we're seeing in the States. 'Cause I'm guessing you have some exposure to that as well too, and just your take on sort of the fashion world and industry as it is right now.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting because through Toronto Fashion Academy, I was hosting something called the Fashion Avenue, and so I was interviewing designers and you know, everybody in the fashion world, and that was always one of the main topics of conversation. And I don't
Right.
think there are any real answers to, you know, where does Canada fit in? How does, like, everything is made all over the world. Everything is influenced by everything. So, you know, I don't know. I think we have brilliant designers and brilliant talent here in Canada. And I think we need to applaud ourselves more.
I agree.
We need to support ourselves more. And, you know, when somebody goes like Christopher Pernille,
Yeah.
his biggest market is in Asia. And he's a Canadian designer. That's fantastic. Good for
incredible.
him. Everybody has their own little niche and their own way of doing things. Yeah, so I just think we need to continue to talk about it, and we need to talk ourselves up, and we need to showcase as much as we can. And people from the outside love Canadian designs.
That's actually fantastic to hear
That's
too.
such
You
a
must, yeah,
refreshing answer.
absolutely.
Instead of the opinions we always get.
Yeah, yeah.
And that we know it all opinions. This is actually
Yeah.
such a natural and
It's
refreshing
genuine.
answer. It's very, very genuine. So thank you so much for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to hear the Canadian designers.
Because I really don't know.
No, but
I don't have a.
But you're getting
it all.
you're getting a real life position on it, right? You're seeing what other people are doing, and the fact that their designs are getting out. Like, that's great to see that Canadian designers are having an influence in, you know, across the world, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't, that reach is what we want our local designers to have.
Yeah, but you know, it's also like, who's buying product and what are they buying? Like, if you're designing something that's so brilliant but so obscure that
Right.
one person somewhere else in the world is going to buy it, like, is that marketable? Is that, like, can you create a business around that?
Right.
Maybe they can. I don't know, but you know, you have to figure out who your market is. How do you get to them? Like, nowadays, you can ship anywhere in the world.
Yeah, it's so easy. Everything's accessible.
Yeah, yeah. So, and Lisa Rinna, you know, from the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, she told me, now how did this go? Sell to the mass, live like the class. Sell to the class, live like the mass. Which means if you make all this fancy clothes, you're not gonna make as good of a living as if
Right.
you're making something that appeals to more people.
Yeah.
To everybody.
You increase your audience right there, right?
Yeah, and she has a line on QVC in the U.S., and I mean, business is booming for her. It's all wearable, washable, nice fashion.
Well, I think that's some really good advice that we just got to, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
So last
From
point.
Lisa Rinna, yeah.
From Lisa Rinna, so we'll quote her on that. Last point for you. So you said you love to mentor and you love to work with people who are sort of learning their passion and trying to strive for what they want to achieve. What's some words of advice you can give to folks, whether they're, you know, in hosting or want to be in fashion or they want to model or they want to act, or, you know, what sort of things that would you suggest, things to focus on and things for them to think about as they're going through their journey?
Oh, wow. I told someone just the other day, if you go to an audition and you walk out, just forget about it. Don't wonder, are they going to call? Did they call? Call your agent.
That's gotta be so
every
tough.
hour to see if they called. Just forget about it. Technically, there's a lot of things that you can do, and I'm always happy to pass that on. Like we talked earlier
Yes, we
about,
did.
you know, if you're in a crowded environment and you're trying to, like not even a red carpet. Sometimes you just interview people at a party. It's good to have a handheld mic and
As
a
well
light
as your-
because you
yes.
get their attention more.
Right. Okay.
I don't know. I think if somebody wants to be a model, then do it. Like, put your best effort forward. However you want, if you want to be, like a mainstream model or whatever you want to do, just don't cut corners.
Right.
Go big or go home, and really put all of your effort into it.
I like that. Don't cut corners. That's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a big one. You got to work for it. It doesn't come easy.
Yeah.
Everything
and
has to be
work.
worked for.
Like,
Yeah.
have a good work ethic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just hustle away. Like,
Yeah.
if you
Keep going.
exactly, and that's what we
And that's what you're doing. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That means
no,
a
you're
lot.
you're doing a great job, and it's so wonderful that you guys are here and you're doing this, and there's nowhere else to go but up. You're just going to keep getting better and better. So I mean, you're here in a really good place already. So
That's
good
great. Thank you for that.
Thank
that
you so
that does
much
mean a
for
lot.
that.
So usually we end our show with Rashi's thoughts because Rashi usually has some phenomenal opinions to end up with that. So we're gonna give her moment to shine, and
No,
then
no,
we'll
no.
say
This
our.
time it's the exception because I'm having my fangirl moment. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna appreciate the fact that you said yes to this opportunity, and I actually will say though. Actually, I do have a last thought. I will say.
There's always one without fail.
I will say that you do feel appreciated when someone like yourself still takes the time to reply to a text message, to an Instagram DM, even if it's been months since we have not crossed paths. And for me, that just says so much about, it says so much about your character and what women should, or even not just women, but like people should aspire to be. Like, you have so much going on. You get messages from millions of people, which we all know, yet you take the time, no matter how busy you are, to respond, and that's like huge. That's like really.
It says a lot about
Yeah,
about
it
your
does.
personality
So-
and your
Thank
and
you.
the
and that
character.
teaches me something every day, that no matter what's going on in my life, or what I try to do, if it's these guys for like feedback, if it's like another project that I'm working on, if I say I'm going to do something on the Thursday or the Friday, to make sure I do something on the Thursday or the Friday that I have
Yeah,
committed
good
to.
for you.
So I've learned that from you, actually, so thank you for that. And that was my last words. Yeah,
That's
there
awesome.
you go.
Joan, thank you so much. This means a lot.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you
All right.
so much.
All right, guys, this is your host Sethi signing off.
And Rashi Bindra and Joan.
See you next week. Hey guys, thank you for watching that podcast or that video. If you like what you hear and you want to hear more of us and see some of our behind the scenes stuff, subscribe below.
Yes, hit that little red, button thingy that's over there, and hit subscribe and keep following us for a lot more cool, fun stuff.
Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you soon.